He's my biological son. I have rights. Terry Thibodeau leaned back in the cafe chair, confident, polished, laying out his demands like a business deal. $2 million or he'd take Isaiah through family court. Myung-ho's jaw tightened. You're broke. This isn't about fatherhood. It's extortion. Terry smiled. Prove it. Oh, wait, you can't. Because I've got lawyers proving she kidnapped him. Hospital records making her look unstable. And your criminal past that'll bury you both. He slid a folder across the table. 72 hours. Or I take everything. Myung-ho opened the folder. Photos of Isaiah. School schedules. Their home address. Then he closed it. Stood. Looked Terry dead in the eye. You just made a mistake. Before we continue, I need to ask you something. If you believe families like Esrin's deserve protection from their past, hit that subscribe button for Ebony and Pearl stories. Because what happens next will test everything this family has built. The phone should have been just another device on her kitchen counter. Another mundane object in the peaceful suburban home Myung-ho had built for them. But when Terry Thibodeau's voice slithered through the speaker at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday, something inside Esrin shattered alongside her grip on reality. Hello, Esrin. It's been a long time. Her phone slipped, clattered against the marble countertops Myung-ho had chosen because she liked how the light hit them. 3 years of peace. 3 years of safety. 3 years of believing she'd finally escaped. You look good, Terry continued, his voice smooth as poison. Suburban life suits you. Nice house. Nice family. Nice new husband who doesn't know the truth about who you really are. She couldn't breathe. Her lungs had forgotten how. How did you find you? He laughed, and that sound transported her back to hospital beds and police stations. Baby, I never stopped looking. And now I'm in Seoul. And I want what's mine. Isaiah. Her son's name on his lips felt like a violation. Esrin's hand trembled against the counter. Stay away from us. Can't do that. See, I filed for parental rights in Georgia. Got lawyers. Got documentation. Got a case that says a father deserves to know his son. A pause, heavy with malice. Or maybe your husband would like to know why you really ran. Why you're so good at hiding. Why you flinch when doors slam. The line went dead. Outside, Isaiah scored basket. Threw his arms up in victory, his laughter mixing with Hannah and Yuna's playful teasing. He looked whole. Happy. Finally healing from wounds he'd been too young to understand, but old enough to carry. And Esrin knew with absolute certainty that the monster from her past had come to take it all away. Her legs gave out. She slid down the kitchen cabinet, knees pulled to her chest, trying to remember how to breathe. The memories came flooding back in violent waves. Atlanta. 5 years ago. Terry's hand around her throat in their apartment, his voice deadly calm as he promised she'd never be free of him. The hospital visits she'd lied about, telling nurses she'd fallen, walked into doors, been clumsy. The restraining order she'd filed and he'd violated with smug confidence because the system moved too slowly to protect her. The night she'd finally run, 3-year-old Isaiah asleep in the back seat. $600 in cash stuffed in her bra. No plan beyond getting as far away as possible. 3 weeks sleeping in her car in different Walmart parking lots before her sister grudgingly agreed to take the baby. 6 months of working 3 jobs to save enough for a plane ticket to Korea, where she'd heard foreign English teachers could disappear into new lives. She'd disappeared, all right. Rebuilt herself from ash and terror into someone who could smile again. Someone who could love again. Someone who believed she deserved the peace Myung-ho offered. And now Terry was here to remind her that women like her didn't get happy endings. The elevator chimed. Myung-ho's footsteps crossed the foyer, then stopped. She knew he'd seen her, crumpled on the kitchen floor like broken glass. Esrin. His voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. Not a question. A lifeline. She looked up, and the concern on his face nearly broke her completely. He crossed to her in 3 strides, expensive shoes silent on tile, and knelt beside her with the careful grace of a man who understood trauma. What happened? His hands hovered near her shoulders, waiting for permission. She couldn't speak, couldn't form words around the terror choking her. Myung-ho's eyes swept the room, cataloging details with tactical precision. Shattered phone, her position on the floor, the way her hands shook. His jaw tightened, and she saw something dangerous flicker across his face, the ghost of the man he used to be before he chose peace. Someone threatened you. Not a question, a fact he'd already confirmed through observation. He found us. Her voice came out broken. Myung-ho, he found us. Who? Terry Thibodeau. The name tasted like blood and hospital antiseptic. My ex Isaiah's biological father, he called. He's in Seoul. He wants, her breath hitched. He wants Isaiah. Myung-ho went perfectly still, the kind of stillness that preceded violence. Tell me everything. So she did. The call. The threats. The legal petition filed 2 weeks ago in Fulton County, Georgia, claiming parental rights based on biological connection. Terry's promise to expose her past, to paint her as an unfit mother who'd kidnapped her son, to destroy everything they'd built. He signed away his rights when Isaiah was born, she said, her voice shaking. He wanted nothing to do with him. But now he's saying he was young, made mistakes, wants to be a father. This isn't about fatherhood. Myung-ho's voice went deadly quiet, the tone he used to use before ordering hits. This is about control. Yes. She met his eyes. And he's smart, Myung-ho. He has lawyers. He has evidence that makes me look bad. Police reports I withdrew. Hospital records that don't tell the full story. Documentation that I left the country with Isaiah without proper custody agreements. You fled an abuser. A court might not see it that way. Her laugh was broken. Korean courts don't automatically honor foreign custody disputes. If he pushes this, if he fights, they could take Isaiah. They could say I'm an unfit mother who kidnapped her son. Myung-ho's hands curled into fists. Outside, Isaiah's laughter rang out again, pure and joyful and completely unaware that his world was about to explode. His full name. Give me his full name. Terry Anthony Thibodeau. She grabbed his arm. But we can't handle this like before. This is legal. If you hurt him, if anything happens to him, it'll make everything worse. No one, Myung-ho said, each word deliberate and absolute, is taking our son. Our son. The possessiveness in those words made her chest tighten with something between hope and terror. I'll call our attorneys tonight, he continued, his tactical mind already working through scenarios. We'll bury him in motions. Injunctions. Make it so expensive and complicated he gives up. And if he doesn't... Something dark flickered across Myung-ho's face, the shadow of Seoul's former underworld king. Then I remind him why people still fear my name. The doorbell rang. They both froze. Myung-ho stood slowly, moved to the security monitor with predatory grace. His expression darkened. What is it? Esrin asked. Stay here. He opened the door, looked around, then bent to pick up a manila envelope. No return address. No postmark. Hand-delivered while they'd been talking, which meant Terry was close. Watching. Waiting. Myung-ho brought the envelope inside, opened it with controlled precision. Photographs spilled onto the counter. Esrin, 24 years old, in an Atlanta emergency room. Face swollen beyond recognition. Arm in a cast. Eyes hollow with trauma she tried so hard to bury. Her stomach lurched. Myung-ho's hands trembled as he studied each image, the only outward sign of the rage building inside him like a nuclear reaction. Then he pulled out the letter, read it twice with terrifying focus. When he finally looked up, Esrin saw the answer in his eyes. Terry Thibodeau had made a fatal mistake. He'd threatened Shin, Myung-ho's family, and some men, no matter how reformed, never truly forget who they used to be. The war for their family had just begun. If this story is hitting different, if you're feeling what Esrin and Myung-ho are fighting for, drop a comment telling us what time you're watching this. And subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories, because what Terry doesn't know yet is that he's not fighting a suburban family. He's fighting a monster who learned to love. And monsters protect what they love without mercy. The photographs lay scattered across their kitchen counter, like evidence at a crime scene. Each image was a window into a version of Esrin that Myung-ho had never fully seen, broken, bloodied, barely surviving. He picked up one photo, her left eye swollen shut, stitches trailing across her cheekbone like dark thread. His hands shook. When was this one taken? February 2020. Esrin's voice was hollow. The night he found me at a gas station 3 hours outside Atlanta. Myung-ho set the photo down carefully like it might shatter. Tell me. All of it. No more sanitized versions. So she did. She told him how Terry had been her salvation when she was 23. Charming, successful, promising stability when she was drowning in poverty and desperation. How he'd moved her into his apartment within 2 months, paid off her debts, made her dependent on him with the calculated precision of a predator. It was subtle at first, she said, staring at her hands. He'd check my phone because he worried about me. He'd want to know where I was going, who I'd be with. He said it was love. I believed him. By the time Isaiah was born, Terry's control was absolute. He'd installed tracking apps on her phone, read her emails, isolated her from anyone who questioned their relationship. When she worked her part-time job at a bookstore, he'd show up unannounced to surprise her with lunch, but really to make sure she was where she said she'd be. He knew everything, Esrin continued, her voice barely above a whisper. What I ate, who I talked to, how long I spent in the bathroom. He said it was because he loved me so much, that he couldn't bear the thought of losing me. That's not love, Myung-ho said quietly. That's ownership. I know that now. She met his eyes. I didn't then. And when I finally tried to leave when Isaiah was 3 and I'd saved $600 in cash by stealing $5 at a time from grocery money, Terry found out. The gas station incident. That's what the police report had called it. Like it was a minor inconvenience instead of attempted murder. Esrin had made it 3 hours outside Atlanta before needing gas. It was 2 a.m. She'd thought she was safe. But Terry had been tracking her phone the entire time, letting her think she was escaping before showing up at that desolate station with a rage that had been building for hours. He dragged me out of the car by my hair, she said, and Myung-ho's jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. Isaiah was screaming in the back seat. Terry kept saying I'd embarrassed him, made him look weak, that I needed to learn what happened to women who didn't respect their men. He'd beaten her until she couldn't stand, broke her arm, fractured 3 ribs, left her bleeding on the concrete while he drove away with Isaiah still screaming in the car. A truck driver had found her 20 minutes later and called 911. 6 days in the hospital, she finished. Terry dropped Isaiah off at my sister's house with a note saying I'd abandoned them both. Told everyone I was unstable. Had addiction issues. The police arrested him, but he made bail within hours. And that's when you ran. That's when I disappeared. Esrin's hands twisted together. My sister agreed to keep Isaiah temporarily. I worked 3 jobs for 6 months, saved every penny and bought a plane ticket to Seoul. I knew if I stayed in America, he'd kill me. He'd promised me that much. Myung-ho picked up Terry's letter, read it again with the focused intensity of a man planning war. The words were carefully crafted, each sentence designed to inflict maximum damage. Myung-ho, we haven't met, but I know a lot about you. Former organized crime, violent past, trying to go legit for your wife and kids. Admirable. But here's what you don't know about Esrin. The letter went on to paint Esrin as the aggressor, Terry as the victim defending himself. It detailed Myung-ho's criminal history with uncomfortable accuracy, his connections to the Yakuza, the bodies that had never been found, the empire he'd built through violence and fear. I've got lawyers ready to bury you. I've got evidence ready to destroy her credibility. And I've got connections in the U.S. Embassy who'd be very interested in how a known criminal is raising an American child. The letter ended with an invitation, a meeting, man to man, a chance to talk reasonably before things got ugly. Location, high-end cafe in Gangnam. Thursday at 3 p.m. Come alone, or the petition gets filed immediately. 72 hours. Myung-ho set the letter down, pulled out his phone, dialed. Jun Seo, I need you at the house. Now. 20 minutes later, his head of security stood in their living room, listening with the calm focus of a man who'd handled worse situations. Terry Anthony Thibodeau, Myung-ho said, sliding a piece of paper across the coffee table. American. Currently in Seoul. I want to know everything. Where he's staying. Who he's meeting. His financial situation. His criminal record. Every mistake he's ever made. Jun Seo studied the name. How deep do you want me to go? deep enough to bury him. Legal or... Legal! Myung-ho cut him off, glancing at Esrin. We do this right. By the book. I'm not giving him ammunition. Jun Seo nodded. I'll have a preliminary report by tomorrow morning. Full workup within 48 hours. He's smart, Esrin warned. He'll have anticipated this. He's probably watching us right now. Let him watch. Myung-ho's smile was cold. He thinks he's playing chess. He doesn't realize I'm playing a completely different game. After Jun Seo left, they sat in heavy silence. Outside, Isaiah was still playing with his sisters, his laughter drifting through open windows like a reminder of everything at stake. The meeting, Esrin said finally. Are you going? We're going. Myung-ho took her hand. Together. He wants to intimidate me with his knowledge of my past? Fine. Let him try. He'll use it against you. Against us. Probably. Myung-ho's thumb traced circles on her palm. But here's what Terry doesn't understand. He did his research on the man I used to be. The criminal. The enforcer. The monster who hurt people for profit. And that man would have killed him already. Myung-ho met her eyes. But the man I am now, the man you helped me become, he's more dangerous. Because I'm not fighting for power or money or reputation anymore. What are you fighting for? Everything that matters. He pulled her close. And men fighting for everything don't play fair. They play to win. Esrin leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. I'm scared. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He kissed the top of her head. But don't let it paralyze you. We survived worse than Terry Thibodeau. We'll survive this too. The next morning, Jun Seo returned with a preliminary report. Terry was staying at the Signal Hotel, one of Seoul's most expensive. He'd been in the city for 5 days, meeting with an American attorney who specialized in international custody disputes. His finances are interesting, Jun Seo said, flipping through pages. On paper, he looked successful. Real estate investor. Clean credit. But I'm seeing some red flags. Large cash withdrawals. Missed payments on multiple credit cards. His business is registered, but I can't find evidence of actual transactions. He's broke, Myung-ho said. I think so, but he's good at hiding it. Esrin's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thursday, 3 p.m. Cafe Onion in Gangnam. Don't be late. And Esrin, make sure your husband understands what's at stake. I'd hate for things to get messy. M. She showed the message to Myung-ho. His expression didn't change, but his eyes went cold. Reply, he said. Tell him we'll be there. Esrin typed with trembling fingers. We'll be there. The response came immediately. Smart girl. See you soon. Myung-ho watched the exchange, his tactical mind already 3 moves ahead. Terry thought he held all the cards, the biological connection, the legal leverage, the knowledge of Myung-ho's past. But Terry had made one critical miscalculation. He'd assumed Shin Myung-ho had gone soft. That 3 years of domestic peace had dulled his edges, made him vulnerable. He was about to learn the truth. Some men don't go soft. They just learn to aim their violence, more precisely. And nothing was more precise than a father protecting his family. If you're invested in seeing how Myung-ho outsmarts Terry, we need you in this community. Subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories and drop a comment with your prediction. Will Myung-ho play by the rules, or will the old monster come out? Let us know what you think happens next. Thursday arrived with deceptive sunshine, the kind of beautiful day that made tragedy feel impossible. But as Myung-ho adjusted his tie in their bedroom mirror, watching Esrin struggle with her necklace clasped behind him, he knew better. Beautiful days were when the worst things happened. Let me. He turned, fastened the delicate chain around her neck with steady hands that belied the violence brewing beneath his calm exterior. Thank you. Her voice was barely audible. Hey. He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. We walk in together. We walk out together. And we give him nothing he can use against us. She nodded, but he saw the fear flickering there, the muscle memory of a woman who'd learned that men like Terry always found a way to win. Esrin, look at me. He waited until her eyes focused. He's not going to win. Not this time. Cafe Onion in Gangnam was everything Terry would choose. Trendy, expensive, public enough to prevent violence, but private enough for difficult conversations. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the street, marble tables scattered artfully throughout, the smell of overpriced coffee thick in the air. Terry was already there when they arrived, seated at a corner table with perfect sightlines to the entrance. He stood as they approached, and Esrin's steps faltered. He looked exactly as she remembered. Tall, handsome in that magazine-perfect way, wearing a suit that probably cost more than their monthly mortgage. His smile was warm, practiced, the same one he'd used to charm her 7 years ago. Esrin. He said her name like a caress. You look well. Motherhood agrees with you. She didn't respond, didn't take the hand he extended. Myung-ho's hand settled on the small of her back, a subtle claim of territory that Terry noted with barely concealed amusement. Myung-ho, I presume. Terry shifted his attention. Good to finally meet you. Please sit. They sat. Myung-ho positioned himself between Terry and Esrin, his body language relaxed but ready. Let's skip the pleasantries, Myung-ho said. What do you want? Fair question. Terry leaned back, perfectly at ease. I want to know my son. I want visitation rights. Summers in the States. Holidays. A real relationship. He doesn't know you exist. Because Esrin lied to him. Terry's eyes flicked to her, and she felt that old familiar fear spike through her nervous system. Told him I was a deadbeat who abandoned them. Didn't mention that she fled the country without my consent. Didn't mention that she violated custody agreements. You signed away your rights, Esrin said, her voice cold despite the trembling in her hands. You wanted nothing to do with him. I was 25. Stupid. Scared. Terry's expression softened, the performance of a reformed man, carefully rehearsed. But I've grown up, got my life together, and now I want to be the father Isaiah deserves. This isn't about Isaiah. Myung-ho's voice was ice. This is about punishing her for leaving you. Terry smiled, and there it was, the flash of cruelty beneath the charm. Maybe. But the law doesn't care about my motivations. It cares about parental rights. And I've got a strong case. Hospital records showing Esrin's instability. Police reports she filed, then withdrew, suggesting manipulation. Documentation of her fleeing the country with my child without proper legal process. He paused. And of course there's you. Me. Former Yakuza enforcer. Multiple unsolved murders tied to your organization. Money laundering. Extortion. You've cleaned up nicely, I'll give you that, but that past doesn't disappear. Terry pulled out his phone, scrolled through something. The U.S. Embassy would be very interested in knowing that an American child is being raised by someone with your history. Myung-ho's expression didn't change. Get to the point. The point is this. I can make your lives very difficult. Korean family court. American custody disputes. Media attention. Immigration investigations. Terry set his phone down. Or we can come to an arrangement. What kind of arrangement? $2 million. He said it casually like ordering coffee. I drop the custody petition. I leave you alone. I disappear back to the States. The number hung in the air between them. You're extorting us, Esrin said, disbelief and rage warring in her voice. I'm offering a solution. Terry shrugged. Think of it as compensation for the years I missed. For the child support you should have been sending. Call it whatever helps you sleep at night. And if we refuse, then I file in Korean family court tomorrow morning. I leak those hospital photos to every news outlet in Seoul. I make sure everyone knows that Shin Myung-ho, reformed criminal, pillar of the community, is harboring a child whose mother kidnapped him from his biological father. Terry leaned forward. Your business partners, your social circle, your daughter's school, everyone will know. He stood, straightened his jacket with calculated precision. You've got 72 hours. After that, this gets ugly. He walked out, leaving them sitting in stunned silence. Myung-ho's hands were flat on the table, perfectly still, but Esrin knew that stillness. Had seen it 3 years ago when the Yakuza threatened her. It was the calm before annihilation. We can't pay him, she said quietly. Even if we wanted to, paying proves guilt. It'll look like we're covering something up. I know. And we can't hurt him. He's too smart. He's got lawyers watching, evidence prepared. I know. Myung-ho looked at her, and she saw the ghost of the man who used to run Seoul's underworld. But Terry made a mistake. What mistake? He thinks I've gone soft. They drove home in tense silence. Isaiah was in the living room when they arrived, supposedly doing homework, but clearly eavesdropping based on the guilt written across his 10-year-old face. Who's Terry? Esrin's heart stopped. Isaiah, I heard you and Dad talking last night. You said Terry was dangerous, that he was threatening us. Isaiah's jaw set, trying to be brave. Is someone trying to hurt Mom again? Esrin looked at Myung-ho, silently begging him to lie, to protect their son from this ugliness. Instead, Myung-ho knelt in front of Isaiah, eye level, the way he always did when discussing serious matters. Yes, he said simply. Terry Thibodeau is your biological father. He hurt your mother years ago. She left him to keep you both safe. And now he's here, trying to take you away from us. Isaiah's face crumpled. I don't want to go with him. I don't even know him. This is my home. His voice broke. You're my dad. The word hung in the air, precious and devastating. Myung-ho had never asked Isaiah to call him that, had been content with Myung-ho, with the slow building of trust. But now, hearing it, Dad, something fierce and protective surged through him. No one, Myung-ho said, his voice absolute, is taking you anywhere. But if he's my biological father, if he has legal rights, then I'll fight him in court. I'll bury him in legal motions. I'll make it so expensive and complicated he gives up. Myung-ho's hand settled on Isaiah's shoulders. And if that doesn't work, I'll remind him what happens when someone threatens my family. The doorbell rang. Ju Neseo stood outside with a thick manila folder, his expression grim. You need to see this. They sent Isaiah upstairs. Ju Neseo spread documents across the dining table, financial records, court filings, credit reports. Terry Thibodeau is broke, Ju Neseo said flatly. His real estate business collapsed 18 months ago. He's being sued by 3 different creditors, maxed out credit cards, behind on his mortgage. The $2 million isn't arbitrary. It's exactly what he needs to clear his debts. So this isn't about Isaiah at all, Esrin said slowly. It's pure extortion. Myung-ho flipped through pages. He's using biological connection as leverage. There's more. Ju Neseo pulled out another document. Sealed record from 2019. Atlanta. I couldn't get the full file, but it involves a minor. His girlfriend's teenage daughter. Allegation of inappropriate conduct. Myung-ho's eyes went cold. Allegation or conviction? Charges were dropped. Victim recanted. But the pattern is there. He uses intimidation to silence people. Can we unseal it? Not easily. But the girl is an adult now. 22. Living in Los Angeles. If someone reached out, offered legal protection, she might be willing to talk. Myung-ho studied the document, and Esrin watched him transform, not back into the monster he used to be, but into something more dangerous. A father with resources, connections, and nothing left to lose. Set up a meeting, he said quietly. Anonymous. Make sure she's protected. After Ju Neseo left, Esrin found Myung-ho on their balcony, staring at the Seoul skyline. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Terry chose the wrong family to extort. He turned, and his smile was sharp enough to draw blood. And I'm thinking it's time to show him exactly who he's dealing with. This is where everything changes. If you want to see Terry get what he deserves, if you're rooting for this family to win, hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments what you think Myung-ho's next move should be. This community is growing because of you, and we need you here for what happens next. Ju Neseo's team worked with surgical precision. Within 36 hours, they'd located Kira Langston in a modest apartment in Koreatown, Los Angeles. 22 years old. Graphic designer. No criminal record. No social media presence under her real name. A ghost, just like Esrin had been. She's protective of her privacy, Ju Neseo explained, setting up the encrypted video call in Myung-ho's home office. My contact reached out through an attorney who specializes in abuse cases. She knows this is about Terry, but she doesn't know details yet. Esrin's hands twisted together in her lap. What if she doesn't want to help? What if we're asking her to relive trauma for nothing? Then we find another way. Myung-ho's hand covered hers. But we give her the choice. That's more than Terry ever gave either of you. The screen flickered to life. Kira Langston appeared, young, guarded, with eyes that had seen too much too soon. Her apartment was small but carefully decorated, the kind of space someone builds when they're trying to create safety from scratch. Ms. Langston, thank you for agreeing to speak with us, Myung-ho began. I know who you are. Her voice was stronger than Esrin expected. Your attorney explained the situation. Terry is trying to get custody of your son. My wife's son, Myung-ho corrected gently. Isaiah, he's 10. Something flickered across Kira's face. Pain, maybe, or recognition. I was 15 when my mom started dating Terry, she said abruptly, as if she needed to get the words out before she lost courage. He was charming at first. Brought flowers. Took us to nice restaurants. Made my mom feel special after my dad left. Esrin leaned forward, seeing herself in this young woman's story. Then he moved in, started making rules. My mom thought he was just being a good influence, setting boundaries. Kira's laugh was bitter, but the boundaries were for her, not me. He wanted to know where I was going, who I was with. He'd check my phone, read my texts, said it was because he cared. He isolated you, Esrin said quietly. Yeah. Kira met her eyes through the screen. You too. Yeah. The shared understanding hung between them, a bridge built from trauma. When did it escalate? Myung-ho asked, his voice carefully neutral. Kira was quiet for a long moment. I was 16. My mom was working nights. Terry would come into my room. Said he wanted to talk. Make sure I was doing okay. But the conversations got weird. Inappropriate questions about my body, my relationships. He'd sit too close. Touch my hair. Her hands clenched into fists. One night, he tried to kiss me. Said I'd been leading him on, that I wanted it. I pushed him away, threatened to tell my mom. He grabbed my wrist, so hard it bruised, told me no one would believe me. That I was a troubled teenager acting out for attention. Esrin's throat closed. She recognized that script. Terry's specialty, making his victims doubt their own reality. What happened? She asked. I told my mom anyway. Filed a police report. Kira's eyes hardened. Terry played the victim perfectly. Said I was jealous of his relationship with my mom, that I'd always been difficult, that this was a cry for attention. His lawyer painted me as an unstable teen with behavior problems. The charges were dropped, Myung-ho said. I recanted. The admission came out broken. Terry threatened to ruin my mom's career. Said he'd make sure everyone knew she was a bad mother who couldn't control her daughter. My mom was fragile. Still is. So I took it back. Said I'd made it up. But you didn't. No. Kira's voice went steel hard. And when your attorney called, when I heard Terry was trying to get custody of a 10-year-old boy, I knew I couldn't stay silent. Not this time. Ms. Langston, Myung-ho said carefully, if you testify, Terry will come after you. His lawyers will try to destroy your credibility. They'll bring up the recantation, paint you as unreliable. Let them try. Her chin lifted with defiant courage. I'm not 16 anymore. And I'm not letting him hurt another kid the way he hurt me. The way he hurt you, she added, looking at Esrin. If testifying stops him, I'll do it. Esrin wiped her eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when we win. 3 days later, Kira Langston filed a motion in Los Angeles Superior Court to unseal her juvenile records and provide testimony in the ongoing international custody case of Thibodeau versus Shin. Terry's lawyers exploded with objections. The testimony was irrelevant to parental fitness, prejudicial, an attempt to smear their client with unproven allegations from a decade ago. The sealed records existed to protect minors, not to be weaponized in unrelated custody disputes. But Myung-ho's legal team had anticipated every argument. They filed counter-motions citing pattern of behavior, character evidence, and the best interests of the child standard that governed all custody cases. The judge took 2 days to deliberate, then ruled the testimony admissible. Terry called Esrin's phone that night. She put it on speaker, Myung-ho beside her. You made a mistake, Terry said, his charming facade completely gone. Digging up ancient history, weaponizing some troubled girls' lies against me. They're not lies, Esrin said calmly. And you know it. What I know is that you just declared war. And you're going to lose. His voice dropped to that familiar, threatening tone. I've got new lawyers. Better ones. They're going to tear apart every claim Kira makes. They're going to expose your custody violations, your lies, your husband's criminal past. Bring it, Myung-ho cut in, his voice deadly quiet. Bring your lawyers. Bring your evidence. Bring everything you've got. Silence on the other end. You think you're fighting a suburban family man, Myung-ho continued, but you're not. You're fighting someone who spent 15 years building cases against dangerous men. Someone who knows how to find leverage. Someone who understands that the best weapon isn't violence, it's information. You threatening me? I'm educating you. Myung-ho's smile was audible. We've got Kira's testimony. We've got your financial records, showing you're broke and desperate. We've got documentation of your pattern of abuse with Esrin. And we're not done digging. There's nothing else to find. Everyone has secrets, Terry. Everyone. A pause. And I'm very good at finding them. The line went dead. Over the next week, Myung-ho's team assembled their case with military precision. Medical records documenting Esrin's injuries. Police reports showing Terry's arrests. Financial evidence proving his extortion motive. Character witnesses prepared to testify to Esrin's fitness as a mother and Myung-ho's transformation into a legitimate businessman and devoted father. June SCO uncovered 3 more women Terry had dated, each with similar stories of escalating control, isolation, and intimidation. None had filed charges, but all were willing to provide sworn statements. The court date was set for 3 weeks out. Korean family court, American legal observers, media starting to circle the story of an international custody battle involving a reformed criminal and an abusive ex. Esrin found Myung-ho in his office 2 nights before the hearing, surrounded by documents and legal briefs. You should sleep, she said. Can't. He rubbed his eyes. I keep thinking about what happens if we lose. If the judge decides biology matters more than safety. If Terry's lawyers manage to paint us as the villains. She moved behind him, wrapped her arms around his shoulders. Then we appeal. We fight. We don't stop fighting. I'm not used to fighting fair, he admitted. Every instinct is screaming at me to just... I know. She kissed the top of his head. But this is how we win. Not by becoming what he is, but by being better. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you've won. You haven't. See you in court. And after you lose, I'm coming for everything you love. M. Myung-ho showed her the message. She expected fear, but instead felt something else rising in her chest. Determination. Let him come, she said. We're ready. The battle lines were drawn. The evidence was compiled. The witnesses were prepared. And Terry Thibodeau was about to learn that some families don't break. They fight back. The Korean family court building was smaller than Esrin expected, less imposing than the marble temples of justice she'd seen in American movies. But as she walked through the metal detectors with Myung-ho's hand steady on her back, the weight of what was about to happen pressed down on her like gravity had doubled. For hours. That's how long they had to convince a judge that Isaiah belonged with them. Terry was already seated at the plaintiff's table, flanked by 2 attorneys in expensive suits. He looked polished, composed, every inch the concerned father seeking his son. When he saw them enter, his smile was calculated, friendly enough for the judge, cruel enough for Esrin to feel in her bones. Myung-ho guided her to their table. Their legal team was already arranged, 3 attorneys, Jun Seo in the back row with additional documentation, and an empty seat where Isaiah had insisted on sitting despite their protests. I want the judge to see I choose you, he'd said that morning, his 10-year-old face set with determination that reminded Esrin painfully of Myung-ho. I want them to know this is my choice. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Kim Min-seo entered, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an expression that gave away nothing. She reviewed the case file in silence that stretched like pulled wire. This is an unusual case, she said finally, her Korean measured and precise. A biological father seeking parental rights after years of absence, an American child being raised in Korea by a stepfather, international custody complications. She looked up. I've reviewed the preliminary filings. Now I want to hear testimony. Terry's lawyers went first. They painted him as a young man who'd made mistakes, but grown into someone worthy of fatherhood. They presented his financial records, carefully curated to hide the debt. They showed photos of him volunteering at youth centers, attending parenting classes, building a life ready to include Isaiah. My client isn't asking for full custody, his lead attorney argued. Simply the opportunity to know his son. Summers in Atlanta. Holidays. The relationship every child deserves with their biological father. They didn't mention the $2 million demand. Didn't mention the threats. Didn't mention Esrin's hospital photos that Terry himself had sent. Then it was their turn. Myung-ho's lead attorney was a woman named Park Ji-won, 53 years old, with a reputation for dismantling abusers in family court. She stood with calm authority. Your Honor, this case isn't about a father seeking his son. It's about an abuser seeking control over the woman who escaped him. She placed the hospital photos on the overhead projector. Esrin Shin, 5 years ago. These injuries were inflicted by Terry Thibodeau during what the police report calls a domestic disturbance. Esrin watched the judge's expression tighten. We have documentation of 3 prior incidents, Park continued. Restraining orders Mr. Thibodeau violated. Medical records consistent with sustained intimate partner violence. And testimony from another victim willing to speak to his pattern of predatory behavior. Kira Langston appeared via video link from Los Angeles. For 20 minutes, she detailed Terry's abuse with steady courage, her voice never wavering even when his lawyers tried to discredit her. I was 15, Kira said, looking directly at the judge. He groomed me, isolated me, and when I tried to report it, he destroyed my credibility so thoroughly I recanted just to survive. She paused. I'm not recanting now. He's dangerous. He shouldn't be near children. And if this court gives him access to Isaiah, you'll be signing that boy's future away to a predator. Terry's lawyers objected, called it prejudicial, argued it had nothing to do with his fitness as a father. Judge Kim overruled them. Character evidence is relevant in custody determinations, she said coldly. Continue. Park Ji-won presented the financial records next. The bankruptcy filing Terry had tried to hide, the creditors suing him, the evidence that his custody petition coincided exactly with his debt crisis. This isn't about fatherhood, Your Honor. It's extortion. Mr. Thibodeau demanded $2 million to drop this petition. When the family refused, he escalated. This entire case is financial leverage disguised as parental rights. The courtroom door opened. Isaiah slipped in, Hannah and Yuna behind him with their grandmother. He took his seat at their table, and Esrin's hand found his immediately. Terry's lawyers presented their closing arguments. Biology matters. Fathers deserve chances. Children need both parents. Then Park Ji-won stood for theirs. Your Honor, Isaiah Aldrich has lived in Korea for 3 years. He's thriving. He has a mother who protected him at tremendous personal cost. A stepfather who has provided stability and love. Sisters who adore him. A home where he's safe. She gestured to their table. Mr. Thibodeau offers nothing but biological connection and a history of violence. The law may recognize his DNA, but it should also recognize that fatherhood is earned, not claimed. Your Honor! Isaiah's voice cut through the courtroom. Every head turned. Judge Kim's eyebrows rose. Young man, this is highly irregular. I know. Isaiah stood, his hands trembling, but his voice steady. But this is about me, and I should get to say something. The judge hesitated, then nodded. Proceed. Isaiah turned to face Terry for the first time. You're not my father. You hurt my mom. You made her so scared she had to run across the world just to get away from you. You made her cry at night when she thought I couldn't hear. His voice shook but didn't break. And now you're using me like I'm a weapon to hurt her again. Like I'm not even a person. Tears streamed down his face. Myung-ho is my dad. He came to the airport when I was angry and scared. He promised to protect me, and he kept that promise. He teaches me Korean and helps with homework and comes to my basketball games even when he's tired. Isaiah's hands clenched into fists. He chose to be my dad. You just want money. Terry's mask slipped, just for a second. Rage flickered across his face, raw and undisguised. Judge Kim saw it. Her expression hardened. Mr. Thibodeau, I've reviewed the evidence. Ms. Langston's testimony. The financial records. The documented history of abuse. She paused, and Esrin felt time stop. And now I've heard from the child at the center of this case, who has made his wishes abundantly clear. Another pause that felt like eternity. I'm denying your petition for parental rights. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order. You are to have no contact with Isaiah Aldridge or any member of the Shin family. If you violate this order, you will be arrested and deported immediately. The gavel came down. Terry lunged forward, face twisted with fury. You think this is over? You think. Security grabbed him before he reached their table, but his eyes found Esrin's across the courtroom, and in them she saw the promise of future violence. Myung-ho stood slowly, positioned himself between Terry and his family. When he spoke, his voice was soft enough that only Terry could hear, but Esrin caught every word. If you come near my family again, there won't be lawyers or courts. There will just be you and a hole so deep no one will ever find you. Do you understand me? It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Terry understood. She saw it in the way his face went pale, the way he stopped struggling against security. Because in that moment, he finally realized who he'd been fighting. Not a suburban family man. A reformed monster who'd chosen love. And when you threatened that love, the monster remembered exactly who he used to be. Security dragged Terry out. The courtroom exhaled. Isaiah collapsed into Myung-ho's arms, sobbing with relief and exhaustion and 3 years of fear he'd been carrying alone. Myung-ho held him tight, one hand cradling his head, whispering promises in Korean that Esrin didn't need translated. 6 months later, the adoption papers were finalized on a Thursday that felt like redemption. She and Isaiah, legally, officially, permanently. That night they celebrated in their backyard. Nothing fancy. Just the 5 of them around a fire pit, roasting marshmallows while Hannah and Yuna argued about whose Esmore was architecturally superior. Isaiah sat between Myung-ho and Esrin, his new adoption certificate clutched in his hands like a treasure map to a future he'd finally stopped being afraid of. Thank you, he said quietly, for fighting for me. Myung-ho ruffled his hair. That's what family does. But you didn't have to. I'm not even. You're mine. The words were firm, absolute, leaving no room for doubt. Biology doesn't make family. Choice does. And I chose you the day I picked you up from that airport. Isaiah's eyes filled with tears. I chose you too, Dad. There it was again. That word that meant everything. Later, after the kids were in bed, Esrin found Myung-ho on the porch, watching the Seoul skyline glitter like scattered stars. You saved us, she said softly, wrapping her arms around him from behind. We saved each other. He turned, pulled her close. You taught me that family was worth more than power. That love was stronger than fear. That some things are worth fighting for without violence. And you taught me that some men keep their promises. He kissed her forehead, and they stood there in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that was full of everything that mattered. Some battles ended not with violence, but with a child finally home. Some families were built not from blood, but from choice. Some monsters learned to love